What does B.A.P.S, school days, used condoms, and fries with mayo all have in common? Oh, must be another episode of Insecure. Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with another episode of Insecure, Season 4, Episode 2, Low-Key Distant. This episode was directed by B.A.P.S. This episode in particular deals with relationships. 3 central relationships: Molly and Andrew, Issa and Condola, and then Issa and Molly. Issa and Molly is kind of is more of an undercurrent. It's kind of like as they deal with the individual conflicts or awkwardness, both those relationships are kind of starting to, in a subtle way, undermine their relationship. So it was kind of interesting seeing that dynamic. But anyway, we basically start off with Condola and Issa, and they are still going over the block party. They're planning out their venue, their location, all of that. I actually noticed as they're walking down the street, they're having a good conversation. And I noticed that there's a store or a restaurant called Market Street Roasters. And it's actually the same one that they met up and first discussed the block party in the season 3 finale. It's the same one where the lady was like, "Hey guys, don't forget to come back from Indie Rock Night." And they were just like, okay, like this whole recurring theme of kind of gentrification and what's going on with the neighborhood. Something that they grew up in and has been very black centric that seems to be getting gentrified in a very weird way. That restaurant, it seemed like a couple of places on that same street, had a under new management, like for lease sign. Like, are we coming back into a black owned space, or is that just, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting, and they made it a point to show them walking past it because that's where they first met, networking and getting the block party going. So it was interesting that they showed that. They kind of have to discuss the obvious, huge elephant in the room, which is this whole trifecta of foolishness that's going on. One thing I noticed that with Condola, she's very affirming, very encouraging when it comes to Issa's ideas. She's matching her energy. Like, she's just as excited. She's really into what Issa is doing, and she believes in the vision. She believes in what it can be. And that is a direct contrast to Molly. I'm noticing things from the season 3 finale, like when Issa was first discussing that idea and it not working out and all that kind of stuff. Molly was just kind of being more like, oh, well, like your little projects, like it's something very passive aggressive and kind of haterish. You don't always have to 100% support your friend in every single thing they do, I guess, if you don't want to. But I think at least you can be encouraging. I don't think Molly sees the value in Issa's creativity and some of her ideas. I think she sees them as kind of less than. Isn't the whole point that she has a vision and that as a friend you want to support that vision and you want to do whatever you can to support, even as a friend, being like, you know what, whatever you put your mind to, you can do that. And I'm here for you if you just need to talk about it, if you just got to express some frustrations, if you need whatever you need. Molly's energy is not where it needs to be. And it's interesting that Condola is kind of the complete opposite of that. She is all in. The only problem with that is that Lawrence is in the mix. Like every time they're having a good time, it's just like, oh, there's that again. But I actually appreciated the conversations they had. And they agree that, look, we're good. There are no issues. We're going to continue to work and make this vision happen. We're going to work and make this block party happen. And Lawrence, it's just going to be Lawrence. And that's it. So I was really excited to see that because I actually like their relationship. I like the rapport they have, and I like where things seem to be going with them. So that was cool. So another thing I thought was interesting was, I guess, the Halloween scene with Kelly, Tiffany, Issa, and Molly. And these costumes, man. Tiffany was Cleopatra. Kelly was Niecy from B.A.P.S, which was perfect. Molly was Isis from Bring It On, another classic. And Issa, well, I knew immediately who Issa was. As soon as I saw the outfit, the hair, like I was like, oh, I know what this is. However, I made a post on Twitter. Twitter is Movieman D, at Movieman D on Twitter. I literally made a post saying like, oh, this is what this is from. And everyone was just kind of like, what? Oh, really? Is that what that was? I guess it's more obscure compared to some black film classics. I heard The Incredibles, I heard Kwame from Captain Planet. I heard Mario Brothers. I heard Gerald from Hey Arnold. I heard Grace Jones, and I heard Arsenio Hall. Arsenio Hall. Yes, that was a guess as to who she was. I don't know if the hair was accounting for some. Probably the hair was accounting for some of these, but yeah. Just to clear it up, Issa was Rachel from School Daze, and the outfit she's wearing is the Jigaboo outfit from the Good and Bad Hair musical sequence in School Daze. It's a scene where the light-skinned, long-haired wannabes are going up against the kinky-haired, dark-skinned jigs or jigaboos. So her outfit was from that, but I'm telling you, it seemed like I was the only person who had just like an immediate idea of what that was. Everybody was like, huh? What? So here's where more of Molly and Issa's issues start to come in. Issa's been busy with the block party. Molly's been busy with work and with Andrew. So they haven't really had time to really connect. And Molly's expressing, some of her issues with Andrew. It's only been like a little over a month, but she feels like there's not a lot of maybe substance. I mean, they joke, they have a good time, they have sex, they do all that, but there's not a lot of, she wants to kind of get more into the depth. And me, I don't like small talk. I mean, small talk is necessary, but I like talking about things that yield a little bit more about the person, why they think this way, why they respond this way, blah, 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 blah. And so Molly is wanting more of that, but I guess Andrew is a little more surface for him. She's told him things like how she had to wear a helmet until she was 11, but he's not really yielding that same information. He's just not giving her as much insight into him as a person, like his upbringing or what makes him him. She's doing that, and he's not really saying much. Issa is just kind of assuming that Molly is just kind of looking for something, because we've seen Molly. Molly can be very paranoid, hypersensitive, over analytical, all of that. I mean, she doesn't know how to just kind of be cool sometimes. But in this situation, I felt like she was being a little more genuine. It's just like, look, I don't mind what I have going on. It's just like, I kind of want to open things up. And unfortunately, Issa takes that as, oh, okay, you're doing that thing you do. And to Molly, it's just like, well, no. So there's a disconnect with how they're clicking in that sense. They're not understanding where each other is coming from. As far as the sex scene, and listen, this is HBO. And one thing I know, since I was very young, I know that HBO has kind of led the charge as far as pushing the boundaries of adult graphic content and all that. And that's fine. It's not like when I see it, it's just like, oh my gosh, sex. Oh no, my eyes are burning. Get it off, please. How horrifying. Like, it's not like I'm just like, I'm not some square. I know people have sex, and I know that shows will depict people having sex, especially in this day and age. I think it just felt like it went on really long. I was like, because it's like they were kind of, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Can we move it along? Like, it was, yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, yeah. It's not about the fact that it's sex. It's about the length and just maybe how they juxtapose it with the rest of the show sometimes. I tell you, when that condom plot on the, I was like, all right. Yeah, I was a little queasy for a second, but I'm like, okay. Because of course, with everything going on in that scene, we had a song playing. I'm a thought for no reason. The song is called Thought for No Reason by Sunny 747. And I'm just like, the fact that they even put that song. You see, music team. It's just like, it doesn't matter whether it's mellow music, ratchet music. It doesn't matter what it is. It'll trap music. It'll just fit the scene always. Now, let me say this. I'm not going to act like in a situation where I have an ex and I have someone new that I'm starting a relationship with. I'm not going to act like it wouldn't be kind of like, I'm not going to say it wouldn't throw me off. However, I just think Lawrence letting it get to him on that level was a little extreme. Like, I'm not going to go drive over to someone, and granted, I understand that they're cool at this point. I'm like, whether we're cool or whether we're not, I'm not about to drive over you to be like, oh, well, you guys shouldn't talk about me, in your conversations. And I'm just like, dude, they literally joked with each other. And so we could kind of get the awkwardness out the way. It's not like we literally had an hour debate and discussion about all the things that Lawrence does wrong. So I don't know. All that, I was just kind of like, look, you're doing a lot, sir. It's not that big of a deal. The conversation Lawrence had with Derek and Chad just reminded me that Chad is probably one of the best characters on this show. Chad is actually my lock screen. Somebody did like an animated version of that scene where Issa and Lawrence see each other at I think it's like a 7-Eleven or the gas station after Coachella. And he's just sitting there and and as they're like, Lawrence, Issa, and they're just staring at each other, he's just sitting there like, that is so him sitting there with the sipping. That is my lock screen. Like, Chad is a mess. Chad is trash, obviously. He's a very problematic individual, shall we say. But Chad is funny. And I feel like everybody knows a Chad somewhere. Whether they want to admit it or not, we all know a Chad, and Chads are a mess. And so, like I said, this whole, Lawrence pulling up to Issa's to talk about that whole Condola and them having a conversation and them joking, I was like, whatever. However, I did find it interesting that we found out that his middle name was actually Martin. His actual first name was Martin, like as in Martin Lawrence. Issa said, what's up? What's up? And as I previously stated, Martin, like, that's one of my favorite sitcoms. So I was just like, this man's name is not Martin Lawrence. Plot twist, as far as the relationship conflicts we were discussing, so Condola and Issa have clearly gotten past theirs because we see them at a restaurant and they're discussing having Schoolboy Q as the headliner. Who should pop up but Molly? And she's not really too pleased about Condola and Issa. I don't know why, but this is Molly, so it's not a surprise. That whole interaction was just weird. Because from Condola going to hug Molly as Issa's hugging her, Molly obviously being ready for Condola to go, and then Issa saying like, "Oh, well, why don't you just, let's just stick around," and doing that thing that friends say when they want you to be cool, like want your new friends to be cool with your old friends, like, "Oh, like, we can, get to know each other," and it's like, I don't want to do that. Now, I'll say this: I can get along with anybody. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm chill for the most part. So would I make a big deal about this? No. But I will also say there are very specific moments where I want to spend time with just one person. Three's a crowd, like they say. And it doesn't have to be, but in certain circumstances, a third person means like that's someone who I also have to give my time, energy, and focus to. And things I might be comfortable expressing with you, with my main friend, I don't necessarily want you to know about. So I didn't necessarily think that Molly was wrong for that. I think continuing to make stuff awkward, like trying to hand her purse. I think it was weird for Issa to not really read the room and not realize that it probably wouldn't have been comfortable for Molly to be there, especially after they haven't had the time to really talk and connect anyway. Like, we're still trying to catch up. And so you're throwing this other person in the mix. And so, yeah, Issa wasn't really thinking. She was just kind of being like, hey, let's all have fun. It's like, yeah, we ain't gonna have fun. Poor Molly. She's doing her best to act like she's not bothered by that whole dynamic between them. But it's just like, look, your friends will have other friends. And sometimes they get along in a way that they don't get along with you. I think she notices that there might be a slight little gap somewhere. And Condola is kind of filling that gap. So if Condola is filling the gap, then where does Molly fit? We are circling the third relationship conflict, which is with Molly and Andrew. And, Molly has them over for dinner, and she kind of is not really wanting to do the whole sex thing and what they usually do, basically. She's like, I'm going to cook. We're going to sit down and talk. Cool. They sit down to eat, and Molly, of course, is being more open and sharing more about her life, her upbringing, childhood, different little things like that. And so when she's kind of pressing for him to kind of open up, he's just kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. And so Molly's just like, okay. Tried to let this slide, but like, what's the issue? Like, really, like, what's going on? He doesn't want to talk about work. He doesn't want to talk about his family. He doesn't really want to go in he doesn't really want to go any deeper with her in conversations, and it's kind of starting to get on the nerves. So all she said was, I want to date a guy with depth. I want us to be able to have these conversations. And for him, it was just kind of like, well, everything's just an issue with you. And then he just walks out, and I'm like, listen, most of the time that would be true, but I don't feel like trying to have important conversations makes Molly like some neurotic, paranoid person. It's just like, hey, can we get to know? I just feel like there's only so much you can know about a person through jokes and through, little quips and things like that, or small talk. But like once you kind of get into like where a person is from, what their experiences have been, you learn more about them as a person, and then your relationship grows because you learn, how the person sees life and how they approach certain situations. So yeah, I was just like, no, I don't agree with that one. Molly can be a trip, but in this case, I understood where she was coming from. Molly is clearly upset after that, and I'm sure she's questioning whether that was the right thing to do or not, and so she's obviously needed someone to talk to. She calls Issa. Unfortunately, Issa is at the Schoolboy Q concert, waiting on Condola, of course. Your friends have other things to do, but there are just certain moments where like you just need a friend to talk to, and sometimes it's a specific friend that you want to talk to, and when they're not there, it's just like... So there's already a gap and things like that. Even though it shouldn't, that kind of starts to widen the gap a little bit more. Finally, Molly and Issa are able to have their self-care Sunday again. They're hiking. Man, I see those hiking trails in California all the time, and I would love to go. Even if it's just to like go and take pictures of the city and the views and all that, like, man, it's beautiful. But getting back on track, they're having a conversation, of course, about Andrew, Molly and Andrew, and a whole bunch of different things. I found it interesting as we closed out this episode that it was a direct parallel to the end of episode 1, because at the end of episode 1, Molly kind of makes this real passive-aggressive statement to Issa about things being messy, and I just think you just like that, and something that's really not a positive or friendly thing to say. And Issa is kind of confused by that. And then this time, Molly is expressing her feelings to Issa about the whole Andrew thing. And Issa is just basically like, I just feel like you're always looking for a problem. Like, aren't you tired? Because, girl, I'm tired for you. Which, that is not going to make you necessarily feel good about expressing anything when it's just like, well, I said what I felt. And you're just like... And being a friend doesn't mean agreeing with everything, but I think saying things that makes the person feel bad about opening up in the first place is kind of counterproductive. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, no. It was interesting because then right after that, Molly gets a call from Andrew, and he actually apologizes. And he basically acknowledges that, you know what, yes, I have some things I have to work on. It is not easy for me to open up. It is not easy for me to share things that are uncomfortable and that pertain to my life. But I hear you, and I hope that's something that we can work on. So Molly is actually vindicated. Like I said, I didn't think she was wrong for that in the first place. So the fact that he called and he acknowledged it, okay, she was not actually wrong for that. But then, and she gets off the phone. And then so when Issa asks, oh, what was that? Molly's just kind of like, oh, that's just, she kind of just brushes it off. Because see, now it's like, well, no. What's the point of even telling you? Her sense of security in sharing kind of just got knocked down a peg or two. So it's like, well, no. Although I would have told her, I'd been like, well, see, ha ha ha. Like, you were wrong. He apologized. Now what? But, she's not going to do that. She now she feels kind of frustrated, kind of defensive, kind of like, oh, okay. Well, no, I ain't telling you anything. And like I said, in friendship, as soon as stuff like that starts, ooh, it's hard to get back on track. It's interesting where things are progressing with them. And now I'm kind of seeing like, they're doing it in a very subtle way, but we are slowly seeing kind of the undermining of that friendship, which is horrible because we've been with them since episode 1 of season 1. Like, why? But I guess we'll see what happens. All right, so that wraps up Low-Key Distant. Thought it was a really interesting episode. I'm interested to see where things go from here. Oh, Molly and Issa. Oof. Yikes. So, until next time, this is The Movie Man signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.